Well, welcome to the Impactus podcast. I'm Dean Brenton, and we are here to equip you as men for a life of purpose and godly impact. If you're parents, you've probably wondered, have I done or am I doing everything I need to do to prepare my kids for life ahead of them? And if you're like me, a dad of four, you've often felt inadequate and ill-prepared for raising kids ready. So today, we're going to fix all of that and make you perfect parents. Not really, but we would love to give you some great insights and tools to help you be confident and intentional in your parenting. And I am thrilled today to be talking to Jonathan Catherman, the author of the international best-selling book, The Manual to Manhood, and a number of other books and resources. He's co-authored with his wife, Erica, most recently, this book, Raising Them Ready. We're going to be talking about that today. A great parenting field guide. He's an award-winning cultural strategist, a leading education trader specializing in youth character and leadership development. He speaks worldwide and coming to us today from a men's retreat about the principles and strengths that empower greatness in children, teens, and young adults. And so what a fascinating area of research and study. And it's going to be a great conversation today. Welcome to the Impactus podcast, Jonathan. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Dean, for having me. It's really good to be here with you and everybody worldwide that's watching this and listening. And so I hope this is a great conversation this morning.
Oh, I know it's going to be. Thank you so much. Tell us a little bit more of who is Jonathan. Tell us about your family.
Well, for starters, Jonathan's really tall. Just by frame, anybody who's watching, here you go. There you are. I'm a big man. I'm 6'5", but that just means there's a lot more of me to get excited. Love the Lord, love my family, love encouraging others to discover and become all God created them to be. Professionally, I'm a sociologist, which is really just a fancy way of saying I get to study groups of people and how they work together. My area of interest and expertise is the cultural generational norm gap between the grandma and grandpa, mom and dad, and kids are growing up today. And I just have a real passion for seeing young people just learn to be confident, capable, kind, and launch into life well.
Awesome. So this episode is going to air around Father's Day, and so happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. But tell us a little more about the importance of the role of dads in the family dynamic.
I think that the role of father in the family is key to kind of this cornerstone of so much health in the home. Moms are amazing. I cannot imagine doing life without my bride, Erica, and the momming that she has done, which is far more. Mom is just an understatement. Dad seems to get this a lot of respect, whereas mom just doesn't always get the due that it is, unless you're the kid, of course. But men, as we look at our role as father, I think we need to do a few things that are critical in the home. One, we need to value moms. We need to value those who are momming. And we need to see our kids as not mini-me versions of ourselves. We're not trying to replicate our experience. We're trying to help them grow and discover the person that they were meant to be. And each one of our kids is so very unique. And as men and as fathers, as dads, we need to help our kids do that and and encourage our ladies in our lives, our wives, to be able to do that body, mind, heart, and spirit. So I don't believe that we are the end all in the home, not by any means. I think that we are absolutely need to be confident, capable leaders. But in that, as leaders, we're really guiding our family in being the very best that they can be and celebrating that, not just as the head of the home, but as the guide from the side.
I love that. I love that imagery of the guide from the side. We're involved in a faith family formation study right now with other organizations in Canada. And what some of the early findings have revealed is that dads have often taken a very passive role in that guiding space in their families, and the moms have often stepped up. So I think that's such an important piece. Now, I want to talk a bit about your book today, Raising Them Ready, because this, as it's described, is a bit of a field guide for raising kids ready. So where did the concept and where did this emerge from your heart, and tell us about that and why it's so important for today?
Sure. Well, we have two sons that are adulting literally as we speak. One is 21, the other is 18. And a few years back, my wife and I sat down and said, boy, the boys are just, they're talking college, they're talking, cars, they're talking about leaving and doing their own pursuits in life. And did we do it right? Do we get it right in raising them ready to leave the home. Now, one thing I know is if you really want to anger a parent, tell them how to raise their kid right. Right. Every home and every experience is different, but we had to take the measure on our own home. So I'm a sociologist, so I'm thinking like a nerdy sociologist, and my wife is thinking as the heart-driven mom. And so we created a list of all the things we needed to make sure our boys knew how to do before they left the house. And mine was very technical, and hers was far more relational. It was great, but we put those lists together. And we went, wow, this is a long list. Let's check it out and see how we did. And thankfully, we're like, okay, we've got some areas we need to improve on, but we did a pretty good job. So let's continue to support how we've raised our boys ready to be able to do the life on their own. But there's some other areas we need to focus on. So when they leave and they go off to college, or they go off to work, or they enlist in the military, they pursue their life, that they're able to do it with the best resources available to them, starting from within them. So really, the book came out of our own checklist. And then we were telling some friends about it, like, oh, can you share that checklist with us? And so we're like, oh, wait a minute. And as we had conversations with folks, we realized there's far more needed than just a checklist. How do we help guide parents to prepare their kids to be ready? Every home is different, right? And how you raise your kids in your home is unique to your family, or unique to your culture, unique to your history. There's a lot of things. In our family, it's hope we did it right, but I definitely know our boys are ready.
Oh, that's good. I love when books and resources are birthed out of your own personal experience, because then it's real. And as I read the book, I was thinking, I needed that book. If a number of years ago, we have 4 girls, 18 to 25. And as I was reading it through, I thought, this is excellent how you've created benchmarks for different stages in their lives of resources and tools and skills that they should have adopted. What are the best ways for kids to learn to tackle the tasks of life for themselves?
Well, the very best way for kids to learn how to tackle the tasks of life for themselves is beginning with the modeling of the parent. So moms and dads, we need to be first to show our kids, to give them the first instruction. It's passive learning. They're learning by observation. We have a fun story in the book where my son was in the back seat of the car, and my wife was pulling through a coffee drive-through, and she was making her morning order. And my son asks, "Hey, Mom, will you roll down my window?" Now, keep in mind, he's little, so it's more like, Mom, window down, and so she rolls down the window and she's chatting with the barista, and my son leans forward and then gives a perfect coffee order for what he wanted that morning to drink. And the barista and my wife, shocked, looked at each other and just started laughing. My son leaned back and was just so proud of himself. What he had done is he had observed Mom order coffee every morning on their first drive of the day. He just saw that modeled. Well, he also saw us modeling how to do other things in life, ranging from vacuuming, keeping the house clean and tidy, to how my wife and I talked to each other and treated one another. So as our children learn, they acquire skill sets and tool sets, we're also forming their mindset. And the very first way for them to learn how to do this is through our modeling, followed by their practice. And one thing that parents, men, we need to get out of our minds is that practice makes perfect. It doesn't. But practice does make us better at what we're pursuing. So get your kids to start practicing the life skills they need to succeed, and they shouldn't have to succeed on the first try. In fact, they might not succeed for years of try, but by time they are ready to launch on their own, it's not their first round, it's not their first go around, and not their first rodeo. They've had a chance to try this before, and they're confident in their abilities. That's
awesome. So everybody's wondering now, did your son drink that coffee that morning?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was actually, she delivered a warm cocoa with foam on top. Yes. Yeah. And he was very proud of himself. No juice box that morning. Coffee with Mom.
Little light on the espresso.
Little light, like none.
Absolutely. So you also state in the book that there's a secret ingredient to parenting that enables some kids to outperform others. So this is a big question, but what is that secret ingredient? Why is it so critical?
Secret ingredient is actually parents. The secret ingredient to their success is parenting. How do we parent? And specifically, what style of parent do we engage in our home? And there's 4 styles of parenting. And spoiler alert, only one of them as parents that we model is the one that our kids are going to have the greatest potential for their benefit, for their success. I won't tell your listeners what they are. I want them to get the book and read it. Not because we want to sell more books, but because you need to read how the process, what all four of those parenting models look like. But that secret ingredient is you as the parent. So dads and moms, how we go about parenting. Our kids are observing passive, active, and applied learning. They're taking all this information in from the very earliest of ages, and will continue to take that in as they grow and they mature. And so now my son is 21 years old, and we talk on the regular, my other son 18, that they treat other people the way that was modeled for them to treat others as you would like to be treated. Well, how would we like to be treated? Well, treat yourselves right and treat others well. Love the Lord your God, love yourself, love others. And so that parenting model is the secret ingredient is the parenting model.
Yeah, it's so good. So in the book as well, and a lot of us have heard this term before, helicopter parenting, and you identify some other negative styles of parenting that protect kids, the bubble wrap parenting kind of model, and those kinds of things. Why is it important to let kids allow them to fail and to learn?
Because it builds resilience, and that's an odd way of saying it, but it allows them to become self-confident. And we often attribute not succeeding with failing, and that's not the case. Just because we didn't get something right the first try, it doesn't mean we failed. Because we didn't get a trophy doesn't mean we failed. We went through this period of time where it was trophies for everybody. You showed up, you got a trophy. You worked hard and you got an award. The truth of the matter is you probably shouldn't get something shiny if you got anything below third place, right? In fact, you go to work hard for the intrinsic motivation, not the extrinsic value. So as parents, when our kids put their effort in and they are practicing to become better, and they're maturing and growing and experiencing both success and loss, and they are managing those emotions, they're actually maturing into the kind of person that's going to experience adult life in ways that recognize I don't always have to be the winner. We all have been behind adults in grocery store lines or in a restaurant or at a stoplight where they're not the winner and they're throwing a fit, or at work or as a neighbor, and you're mind blown as why is this full-grown adult acting like a child? And I would venture to say probably because they've acted like that for a very long time since they were a child. Allowing our kids to put in the extra effort, to struggle, to not always succeed as we would want them to, but to get better at it will help them understand that this is how I mature and own these values, own these skills, own these things on my own. So you gotta let them struggle. Resilience is not just bouncing back. True resilience is bouncing forward.
That's good. I was going to jump onto that word, and because I think we need to park here for a moment. But that idea of resilience, and coming through 2 years of a pandemic, we've seen the impact on families and children in particular, the isolation, the difficult times in learning. How can parents help their children learn to have more of a resilient mindset?
Patiently, because we are a rush culture, right? We hold the world of information in the palm of our hands, and we can drive anywhere. And if it takes longer than about 15 minutes, that's too far, right? Or if we have to wait more than a download period of 30 seconds, that's too long. How do we help our kids build that resilience is patiently. And the pandemic forced everybody to practice a form of patience. Many people did it very poorly. Others took a breath, or as my sons say, they took a beat. It's just like let one pass, let another pass. Take your time. Parents, we need to teach our kids to be patient. Resilience is not just fall down, get up, and get going again. It's also about thinking of what just occurred and what did I learn from it? How can I better through that process? And what am I going to do next time? So as much as we need to teach our kids resilience, we also need to teach them to resolve. Meaning, I make decisions now about what's going to happen in the time to come. So when that does occur, I don't have to go through the decision-making process. I've already made that consideration. So yes, give your kids patience. Be patient with your children. Let me say that again. Dads, parents, be patient with your children. Their brains are still developing. Their bodies are still developing. Socially, emotionally, they're trying to figure things out. And what they just went through in the pandemic is a completely different experience as to what we as adults went through in the pandemic. The analogy I like is we were all in the same storm, but we were in different boats. That's good. And some of us, particularly as grown-up adults, were in larger vessels that the hulls were stern and we could manage the weather. Our kids, on the other hand, many of them were in small little rafts and just set out amongst the waves. Even though they're in our home, the experience was different than our own. So we can't say 1-to-1 we're equals, because we're not. They're children, we're adults. Teach our kids to be resilient by being patient with them, recognizing their experiences are unique to them. Help them make decisions today, or consider how they will make decisions for tomorrow, today. And be patient. It's going to take time.
That's great advice. And I think that's one of the reasons the Apostle Paul tucked that as one of the fruit of the Spirit. Patience gets tucked in there. And boy, is there ever a day that patience is needed in our microwave culture, and especially in raising our children.
And patience is not a sit-down conversation with your kid to be patient.
Yeah, that's true.
Patience is a practice that we need to do. And again, practice makes better over time.
Yes.
So no lectures, Dad.
Absolutely. The last chapter of the book talks about a release plan, and I love the intentionality that you've articulated. I haven't seen it in a lot of parenting books, but you've systematically laid out a way to release children into adults. Tell why it's important to have a release plan and what that looks like.
So beginning with that end in mind, the release plan for a parent. Now keep in mind, parents, this is for children aged 2 to 22 years old. You think, what do you mean, release my child? He's 5. That's not going to work for me. No. Hang in there. Wait for a second. To get a grasp of how the release plan works, you actually need to go back to the first part of the book. So the book is broken into 3 parts: ready, set, and go. In ready, we're teaching parents how to do a readiness assessment for any demand their child faces in life. Demand could be, washing the dishes after dinner or getting their homework turned in on time. They are small, like tying their own shoes. They're large, like changing a tire once they're of driving age. Demands have come at us every single day, and we need to teach our kids how to handle those demands. But we need to also, as parents, recognize, are they ready or not for that demand? Part 2 of the book involves this extensive launch list of over 300 skill sets and tool sets our kids need to acquire before they launch on their own. And they're broken down by age and ability appropriate stages and development of life. So now as a parent, I have the ability to do this readiness assessment. I'm running this launch list with my kids, but now I've got to think about letting them go. I don't like that idea. In fact, I have very few parents are like, I can't wait till my kids leave. Unless there's some struggle going on in the home, right? But yeah, what do you mean, a release plan for a 5-year-old, a 12-year-old? They're not ready to go yet. My 18-year-old's not even ready to go yet. Some parents will say, well, think of your release plan like this. It's really about how we've taught our kids to handle the demands of life, giving them the skills and the tools they need, and then letting them practice that a little at a time over time. So release plan goes with instruction, guidance, and counsel. So particularly when children are young or they're learning something new, we're giving them direct instruction. Do this, then that. Well, once we've done that, we got to let them do this, then that. So we've got to take our hands off. So we instruct and release. That's us towards our children. And then there's guide and release. That's where we're alongside of them, giving some helpful hints, some suggestions, encouragement. We're guiding them along the way. And once they're getting better and they're managing, we release. And then there's a time where they're mature and they come back to us as parents and ask, I need some assistance. I need some support. How would you do this? Well, now that's our counsel. They're seeking our counsel. That's a sign of maturity when you go to somebody else and admit, I need some additional resource and additional insight. So instruction, release, guidance, release, and counsel and release. So it's critical to have that release plan. So that way you're letting go of your kids a little at a time, over time. Real quick, one of my favorite illustrations of this is teaching a child to ride a bike. So they're young, they're small, they're wobbly, they got the training wheels on, and they've got bubble wrapped basically so they don't hurt themselves, the helmets, and we as a parent are giving them instruction: pedal like this, steer like this, brake like this. And then we're running alongside of them with our hand on the seat. And the day comes where the training wheels are off and we let go of our child and they go riding off on their own to a certain crash. But we're there to help pick them up. And we help them along the way become a better rider. So we've given them instruction and now we're guiding them and becoming a better rider. But the day comes where my kids say, I'm going to go ride my bike. And I don't say, oh, hold on, let me put on my running shoes so I can run beside my teenager while they ride their bike and make sure they don't crash. No, I've instructed, guided, and I release and let them go ride their bike. And we as parents, we've got to get our kids to a place where they can manage on their own without us running alongside, making sure they don't crash. Because they're going to. Everybody eventually topples over in their pursuits, but they get back up, dust off, get going, and they've learned better. So that goes back to that resilience. They're now better rider because it's round 2, round 200, round 500 that they've been on the bike. So same thing for how they talk to adults, or the same thing for how they keep their room and space clean, or the same thing about how they go into the workforce, or same thing for how they clean a bathroom or feed a pet. It's instruction, guidance, release. Instruction, guidance, release. So by the time they're 18, 20, 21 years old, we're pretty hands-off, but they're still coming back to us looking for that counsel. That's a great compliment to any parent.
I love that. I love that illustration, and that is so important in raising healthy children. I want to encourage anybody who's listening, get this book. It's filled with great advice and great benchmarks to look at as you raise children into teenagers and into adults. Jonathan, for the dad or even mom who's listening to this today and they just feel like, you know what, I really messed this up, or I'm not doing well as a parent, I'm struggling. What encouragement would you give them just to, take a step back and reevaluate? What would you say to that parent today?
It's never too late. Please don't think you have messed this up and that it's too late. I think that in Scripture we read of the prodigal son, the story of the prodigal son, and a lot of energy and a lot of focus is put on the prodigal son, the prodigal's father. Do you think maybe he thought he messed up? Here his child leaves and what we will interpret as squanders their life, and then comes home ashamed. And yet the father was waiting for them with anticipation, all the while probably questioning, did I get this wrong? Did I do this wrong? But we don't have the second part of the story, but I imagine the second part of the story was a lot of parenting to an older grown child. So parents, it's never too late. You be consistent. You have to be the kind of parent that your child will be looking for at any point of their interest of maturing. We need to recognize that age and maturity are not the same thing. Because you have an older child, let's say your child's 15 and just off the rails, and you're thinking, I've gone wrong, it's too late. It's not. It's never too late, and it's not time to give up. Because just because they're 15 doesn't mean they're mature. So as they grow into a stage or a phase or a place in life, or the Lord produces in them the need, the brokenness that they need to return to you as a parent to grow and mature, age is irrelevant at that point. It's about how do we help them discover and become all God created them to be, to grow to be kind, confident, and capable adults. So please don't worry about their age. Focus on them maturing into ready adults.
I love that. I'm so glad you brought up the prodigal son story. It's a profound story, and often we do think the central character is the prodigal son, and actually the central character is the father and the posture of the father in that whole narrative, which goes back to that question we asked earlier about the secret ingredient of parenting. It's actually the parent. It's actually that posture, and it's the heart of the father that we need to model and find and keep putting out there in front of our children. So, Jonathan, this has been wonderful. So let's do something fun, if that's all right.
Let's
a little
do it.
Bit of a lightning round.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. And this is without coffee, so this is going to be impressive.
Yeah, I haven't had my coffee yet this morning. It's kind of early where I am. I don't think the sun's coming up for 3 more hours.
All right, your favorite family vacation?
Would be summers on Woodby Island in the Canadian San Juans.
Nice, very nice. The most impactful book you've read in the past year?
Ambiguous Loss by Dr. Pauline Boss.
Fantastic. Got to check that one out myself. Yeah. The top skill you learned during the pandemic?
Landscaping.
Wow.
Landscaping. We ripped out our entire backyard, literally house to fence, and redid the entire yard one shovelful at a time as a family. It was amazing. Wow.
I suspect there was a lot of renovations and landscaping during the pandemic.
Yes. And we took up most of the stone. So
your go-to passage of scripture, your favorite passage?
Proverbs 27:17. As iron sharpens iron, so does one man sharpen another.
Love that. And if you could meet one Bible character for coffee, not Jesus, who would it be?
The young man who was born blind, who Christ healed, whose parents were called into interrogation of why is your son now able to see? And the parents pass it off to the kid, and the young man comes in and says, "What don't you believe? You all know me. You passed me every single day outside of the gate. And Jesus healed me. You want to go talk to him? Let's go." And I, not because I think he was a brazen young man who's sassy before leadership, but because he was heart in with Christ. Before he even knew that Christ was context of the Messiah. This was a man he was healed. He couldn't see. He was cast as never being able to worship as everyone else desired to worship. Through apparently no fault of his own, because it's supposed to have been his parents' sin. So the one time he goes in the temple, one time, he'd been outside, he'd heard the celebrations, he'd smelled the burnt sacrifices, the conversations from people passing, coming and going. He knew what happened on the other side of that gate. And the one time he's invited in, he is then thrown out. And he didn't care because he pursued Jesus.
Oh, that's good.
I want to ask that guy a lot of questions, and I'm going to. I have plans. I got a list. When I get to heaven, it's gonna be a good conversation.
Well, that's fantastic. Now I want to meet him too. So that's great. Where can our audience go to connect with you or to get a copy of your book?
Sure. Of course, everybody likes just Google Jonathan Catherman. Last name is spelled Catherman. Come over to our website, thecathermans.com. Cathermans, plural, because it's my wife, I, and our sons as well. And then our books are available everywhere you buy books. Just jump online wherever you like to buy books and type in Catherman, and you'll find a whole variety of our resources. And of course, we're talking about raising them ready, practical ways to prepare your kids for life on their own. We're very, very humbled and pleased to present this to the world.
Oh, that's so good. And I do encourage everybody who's listening, get a copy of that book. If you're parenting, it's a great field guide. And I wish I had it when I was earlier in my parenting days, but I'm glad I've got it now and can pass it along to other parents. So thanks, Jonathan, for joining us today. I want to say, again, a happy Father's Day to all the dads. You might feel overwhelmed or out of your league at times as a dad or as a parent, but I want you to know that with the Father's love and his help, you've got this. You can do this. So let's be the dads he's created us to be. And again, Jonathan, thank you so much. It's been a delight to get to know you, and just pray continued blessings on your ministry.
Thank you, Dean. Appreciate it. And to all your listeners, you got this. You got this. Follow the example of the Father. You got this.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Impactus podcast. To learn more about living a life of purpose and godly impact, check out impactus.org.